this is Miss Israel coming at you from Einstein High School. We're going to be looking at Unit 2, Topic 1, Question 26 from the Algebra 1A exam review packet. The graph below represents the temperature F in degrees Fahrenheit inside of a freezer as a function of time. The variable T represents the time in hours since midnight. Okay, so let's look at our graph here. Very important to just take a moment, figure out what we've got going on. So we have temperatures in a freezer, and we have our two variables here on our horizontal axis. We have the time T in hours. So that's going to be our horizontal axis. And on our vertical axis, we have the degrees in Fahrenheit. And those are our two variables as well. So we have F and T. Okay. What is the domain of the function? Well, remember the domain is going to be on our horizontal axis here. So the domain is the time. But we don't just want to identify what it is in words. We want to talk about it with numbers. So what I'm going to say here is we know that our domain is between the values of 0 and 7. Okay, so if you look here, there's our first point. It's when t equals 0, and our last point is when t equals 7. I show that in words because sometimes we forget the notation, and I want you to feel comfortable writing it out on your exam. But I'm also going to show you the notation for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that our values of t fall between 0 and 7. So when 0 is less than or equal to t and less than or equal to 7. And that's how we're going to write it in a more mathematical way. Okay. What is the range of the function? So the range was our vertical axis here. So here's our range values. And that, I don't know what I wrote there, our wrangles, our range values. And so we need to identify vertically the maximum and minimum of this function. So we know that the range is degrees Fahrenheit. And so the lowest degrees we have is between the F values of -3 and +3. And we're going to write that also in our nice mathematical notation here. So we're going to say -3 is less than or equal to F is less than or equal to 3. Again, on the exam, don't be afraid to write it out in words, but if you remember how to write it using our interval notation, that's pretty good also. All right, what is the meaning of the F-intercept? The F-intercept. So remember the word intercept. It's not intersect. We're dealing with one of our axes there, and we want to figure out, is there a point on our F-axis? So if we look over here, we see that we have a point right here. We've actually already colored it in. On our F-axis, there's our F-axis. So our F-intercept is going to be the point 0, -2. And so the meaning, let's use words. Let's use what has been told to us. We're dealing with temperatures in a freezer, and we have the variables time and degrees Fahrenheit. So let's write a sentence for that. We're going to say when it is 0 hours, kind of an awkward way to say it, but you know what I mean. The degrees Fahrenheit is -2. Okay, lots of different ways to say that, but the key is that we use the words hours and degrees. We use numbers, -2 and 0, so we want to be specific when we're dealing with meaning. Okay, at what time T is the minimum temperature reached? So we're dealing with the minimum value or the lowest temperature. So let's look on our graph. So if these are our temperature values here, the lowest temperature that we're going to encounter is right here. There's our minimum point. And that's going to be when F is equal to -3. So let's say -3 degrees Fahrenheit at a time of, just notice it says at what time, doesn't it? So what time did that occur? So that's going to be a time of 6 hours. That's really the answer to that question. What does the statement f of 5 equals -2 mean? Okay. And so let's look at what we're dealing with. Our function in this case is that the degrees is a function of time. I'm going to write that out. So the degrees are a function of time. So in this case, what this means is when T equals 5, our degrees Fahrenheit equals -2. And since it says in the context of the situation, we want to use words. Just like in English class, it's like we're dealing with a story here. So the context of this, we're in a freezer, we're dealing with time and temperature. And so we want to explain that in words. So let's say at 5 hours, the temperature is -2 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and I think that'll do it for question 26.